Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Access to Capital Roundtable webinar. My name is Cassie. I am the Program Development Officer at the Sacramento MBDA Export Center and also one of the organizers for our COVID-19 medical supplies and PPE virtual trade show. Thank you all for joining us this morning. I'd just like to get started in introducing our moderator for today's webinar, Felipe Kuzner. He is the CEO of Swell Capital Inc., where he provides business development and capital placement services for investment funds and companies focused on infrastructure, sustainability, health, and entertainment sectors. He is also the international trade expert at the California International Trade Center and has a number of years worked for the Los Angeles Mayor's Office as well. Welcome, Felipe. I'd just like to pass it over to you to get started and have you introduce our panelists.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cassie. Hello, everyone. I would like to first start thanking Cassie, Saori, and the Sacramento MBDA team, the entire MBDA, and of course, Call Asian for putting together such a timely event, and of course, with a very relevant conversation today. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm delighted to have these two experts that will share with us their thoughts about everything that is happening with regards to COVID-19, the shifts in the supply chain, but also access to capital, which is the topic at hand today. So thank you so much, Cassie, and I will start with the program now. I know that you will be monitoring everything, and we look forward to having you back in a moment. But with that, I'd like to really start the program here. Introduce myself again. As Cassie mentioned, I am Felipe Kuzner, international trade expert with the California International Trade Center, based here in Los Angeles, and also CEO of my company, Swell Capital. The topic today is access to capital. We've all seen, the shifts that are happening because of the pandemic, and we might not have seen is the amount of assistance or resources that we can have access to support our businesses during these trying times. And I'm very happy to have today with us two people that have been experiencing a lot of that because of either the participation in this sector, but also because of the assistance that either they have inquired for or provided to companies, small, medium-sized businesses or minority-owned businesses as well. So with that, I would like to introduce the two speakers that we have here today, the two panelists that are going to be part of the conversation today. So we have Helen Zhou. She is the president and CEO of ANET Services, providing a number of consulting services, but specifically on the medical supplies, PPEs, and medical equipment as well to companies here in the United States. Welcome, Helen, and thank you for joining us. We also have Jeff Weng, who is the managing director of USA Reg and is based here in the Bay Area. He provides also not only capital and strategic advisory services, but also funding and financing for companies that are also going through the challenges of the pandemic. So we're going to get straight to the point, and we're going to get straight to the conversation. I really want to just kick off this panel, allowing Helen and Jeff to start with a brief introduction about yourselves, your companies, and what we do, and then we'll come back to really kicking off the actual access to capital roundtable, where I will pose some questions to you. So with that, thank you so much again, all the panelists, for joining. We look forward to this conversation today. And if you have questions, you're in the audience that have questions, please feel free to submit the questions to the Q&A tab they'll have on your Zoom app, and we will take that at the end of the program. So with that, Helen, please, again, thank you for joining. Welcome to the show. Share a little bit about you, your company, and what you
do. Thank you for hosting this event. This is excellent. This is the second time I attended the similar event hosted by Sacramento MBA, and they have done an excellent job, put lots of time and effort on it. I really appreciate it. Also, thanks to Felipe to moderate the event, and Today, I'm trying to present what we have for our company and what we have for the future. So we as an ANET services, we are IT services company, mainly focused on IT services, mainly consulting before the pandemic. During the pandemic time, we expanded our business areas to support medical supplies, office supplies, and IT supplies. So our goal is to provide that via various methods, do marketing, either online through e-commerce channel or do direct email marketing to the target audience. So with that being said, we have spent lots of time trying to connect with different type of suppliers to meet the needs. So far we have made great progress. And the plan we have signed the agreement with many manufacturers. They agreed to be our suppliers, and also we have a giant company, Cynics Corporation, to serve as our supplier for the IT supplies. So that's very good. As far as the challenges, we see that mainly one is the pandemic caused shutdown, and everywhere it's, I mean, if there's no essential activity, most of the time it's closed initially. And then the second issue is lots of companies receives PPE or EIDL assistance, but that's just based on the 2 months or up to that limit, what they can get. That's not enough for some companies, especially small businesses, less than 10 employees, have challenges to sustain and grow in this environment. I personally have tried to talk with the different type of financial institutions, banks, and try to get their understanding and their current criteria. How will they lend the loan, or what's their criteria to issue the loan? Sounds like they offer better services than before. They are willing to connect with small businesses, but still you need to go through all the processes with the same criteria that's established before the pandemic for the lending. So I mean, on one side, they are correct because they are adhered to their financial rules to make sure their investment is not waste. It's not wasted by anyone. But second, on the other side, there is an issue because most of the small businesses, they do not have enough qualification to justify themselves for more money than they can afford or they can lend to get to the point they can grow to in this environment. So that's the main challenge I've seen as a small business. So with that being said, I mean, so far I have seen that federal government has done a lot of job, and the Congress has done a lot of job to try to keep the economy in good, healthy mode. Try to, I mean, grant funding and help to everyone, including small businesses. So that's good.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Helen. We're definitely going to go back to a lot of the items that you mentioned, but appreciate the you know, your comments. We are clearly experiencing a lot of challenges, all companies and most of the sectors, and of course, as much as we see some of the sectors contract, we also see exponential growth in sectors such as PPE and medical supplies and all that. So we're going to go back to that because we're going to talk a lot about access to capital in that regard. But I want to turn it over to Jeff as well. So Jeff, I would love to you know, hear from you a little bit, you know, about you, about your company, a little bit about what you do, because I think you do very exciting things in terms of not only the capital and strategy advisory services, but the funding that you also provide. And then we're going to shift back to the conversation itself. So Jeff, please.
Hey, Philip, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. First of all, thank you for having me, Philip, and the Sacramento MBDA, Cassie, and the team. I really appreciated the opportunity to join today's webinar. My name is Jeff Weng. So our team is based in San Francisco Bay Area. My background is engineering and business and finance. Coming from the issues of previous working on startups, I co-founded startups in the late 90s and got some luck with the exit on the startups. After that, hop into the corporate world, ex-Fortune 500 companies. And after that, for decades, and I was currently in the venture capital and private equity industry on the debt financing and kind of capital placement side of it. So during the pandemic, actually, our team has been thinking, what we can do to bring to the table and help our network and either the suppliers, the clients, or our portfolios to keep a healthy financial stream and cash flow, etc. So we put together, actually, since February, we put together a platform called G20X Wholesale Club. So the platform essentially is to bring our vetted pre-existing supplier networks, pretty much within the U.S. and outside of the U.S. That we previously has done the due diligence on the supply side, both financially in delivery, product quality, etc. And during the pandemic, we noticed that all of a sudden, the marketplace has a huge demand on PPE items. And so does ourselves as well. But when we dig into it, we discovered that a lot of suppliers are outside of US, either in Asia, in Europe, or somewhere else in the world. That's just kind of what we went through globally in the global economies, where we have a very diverse global supply chain. And it's also very interesting that we're currently shelter in place here in San Francisco Bay Area, and we're not allowed to travel. So in the normal world, if you want to deal with overseas suppliers, oftentimes you will just hop on an airplane, go to visit the factories and check it out, do your own due diligence. But how do you do that during a pandemic where people are not supposed to travel and stay home? So how do you do that? And how do you do your normal due diligence and check the product quality, etc.? So we figured that since we have done a lot of legwork before over the years, and it's time to bring those resources into a platform and kind of try to open it up. And we have some data points, and many of the companies that came to us for financing, so we vetted these suppliers before, and we'll be able to know the financial strength and healthiness of the company. And so these are something that we are trying to do to collaborate with the community and bring those kind of pre-vetted suppliers, manufacturers into the networks and help on the demand side. So essentially, what we're trying to do is to facilitate and accelerate whether the deal flows or the successful the transaction, the quality of the transactions, and the delivery time of the medical supply goods, etc. So this is interesting timing where it's time for people to really unite together and collaborate. So I think this is a very meaningful event. I was really looking forward to having in-depth discussion with all of you. Yeah. Thanks for it.
Excellent. No, thank you, Jeff. You mentioned a little bit about how your business, is facing the pandemic and how some of the challenges and some of maybe the opportunities that you're facing as well or encountering. Let's talk a little bit about just your business itself, because I think this will resonate with a lot of people from the audience. Is what are some of the changes that you had to go forth or that you had to put forth in terms of your business structure? Jeff, you just mentioned you created the G20X platform or marketplace to, cater to the demand that you saw increased. Helen, you mentioned that you had, because of some of the businesses were shut down, but the others were facing the PPE shortage. So you wanted to cater to them, but you also had to, you faced some challenges accessing capital or maybe, sourcing the PPE itself. So tell us a little bit, I'm going to start with you, Helen, please. Some of the shifts or some of the adjustments that you had to go through within your own company, either because you were also sheltering in place and you couldn't really be able to do the inspections, just like Jeff mentioned. But tell us a little bit how you adjusted and how you're adjusting. And if you want to tie that into also financial hurdles that you had to go through, that would be very welcome. So please, Helen, share your thoughts.
Okay, so for us, in the beginning, I was involved in the donation effort to send the PPEs to China at the time when it first came out. So luckily I was involved in that, so that I get to know lots of people. Later on, when I tried to do the import from China to US, so I have lots of resources I can leverage to get support and help from them. They help me to get to know the suppliers, the actual manufacturers. So and a really good deal on what we can get, and with very, high quality products. So that's good. On the supplier side, I'm grateful for whoever have helped me on that. So that's good. But on the funding side, that's a little bit of challenge, because we all know that within US, the government will not pay you until they receive the suppliers. And the consumers, normally they will not pay unless they use credit card to pay, but that's a small amount. It's hard to import that small amount. So that's a big challenge between the buyer and the seller, no matter if it's government or it's a consumer. So right now, I have spent like 2 months trying to bring them together, build a channel or build a platform or whatever we call it. Either it's people manage it or it is automated. So try to build a global supply channel for that. So that's what I'm doing right now. With that being said, we are still short of funding because we just started. We try to build that channel. We try to do the work. So it's one step at a time. I heard that Jeff and you, both of you, you have funding. Both of you have funding. So can I ask for help?
Yeah. So thank you, Helen. And it's funny, we used to go to conferences all the time. I'm sure that you're all very used to going to trade shows and trade missions, and we're short of that. And this is where things like this would actually happen, right? That we are now, we just ran into each other, we just got to know each other, and actually Jeff could be a financing or a funding solution to you, Helen, to actually get going with your purchase orders and purchase financing. So this is why I appreciate so much the work of Cassie and the entire MBDA team, because it has to continue, right? These interactions, they have to continue. So we have to, the collaboration that Jeff just mentioned also, it's really important that we, at this point, of course, this is it's a health crisis. We are all very aware of this. And as much as there is competition, the demand is just so high, it's so elevated that, there's really a lot of space for everyone to play. And I appreciate, of course, you have to be competent, you have to have good work ethic and all the things that are already a requirement of good business practices. But, I'm glad that we're having this conversation here, because it's a real life example of how a trade mission or a trade show could actually help find solutions among partners that haven't ever met before. So I hope this is also something that the audience is pleased with the work that we're doing. So tying to that comment that Ellen just made, Jeff, you're providing funding or trade financing in many different levels, depending on the volume of that purchase. You could provide with your own capital, with your firm's capital, or you could actually help or advise companies how to get access to other types of capital. Can you expand a little bit more about that? How does that work? And what's the process, so people can should they just approach you and your company and say, listen, I have this is my situation, how can you help me? How's that relationship built, please?
Thanks, Philip, and Helen. Thanks for bringing up this topic. So this is actually financing is this has been a critical element during the pandemic for a lot of companies, we believe, and the government has thrown out lots of stimulus plan in order to provide financial support to the company. And actually, well, small and medium businesses a critical force for the country to create more jobs. So the growth of the small companies into bigger companies, that path is so important. If in the venture capital world we said if the lack of fundings, there's a period of time you have to go through what we call like death valley. If you don't pass that, then you probably go in debt, right? So how do you pass that with the right amount of capital support when you need it? This is important. So from the financing standpoint, if you look at the financing world, where we go to the bank, and the bank will always have their standard underwriting guidelines. Will ask for probably you check your credits, ask for your collaterals, your personal guarantees, etc. So as a business owner, so most people went through that. So we pretty much just know what the bank will be asking. But unfortunately, as we step into these new technology worlds, a lot of companies, especially in Silicon Valley, are very asset light type of companies. And if you're in the trading business, if you don't own a lot of real estate and you don't have a big credit lines in the bank, when you need to have access to the capitals, you need to be creative. And sometimes you just, if you go to the bank, they just don't have it because the company doesn't have the well credit line established. And so when you need to draw something to facilitate that business activities, it could be challenging, especially right now, giving a very short notice. That a lot of people, banking professionals are super busy. They are overwhelmed in their day-to-day activities. So even though you're trying to get like PPP or whatever, you need to be on a wait list. So if you're late, you don't get the money. So we've seen that. And so I think in today's topic, we'll talk about PPE. So I will just focus a little bit more on the trade financing side. In the financing world, there are some mechanisms or financial solutions that could potentially cater to the situation that most business owners are facing. So for example, if you have a PO, purchase order from your customers, and let's say first of all we will from the financing side we'll look at how credible the customers is. If it's a mom and pop shop or it's a federal government, it definitely carry different weight. And so depending on the type of the customers and how the credit worthiness, the financiers or the lenders may or may not alter its underwriting guidelines because it has something to do with the risk factors. So essentially, the lower risk of the deal, the more competitive the rate and the term is. If in the higher risk level of the deals, the more requirements that the lender will put on table. So for the suppliers, this type of trade financing deals, there are a lot of I would say capital source out there that cater and design to support the trade financing type of activities. So I would encourage everyone to just dig into it, and maybe you can just find the trade financing programs in your town, or just you may check with your bank and see if they offer something like that. I know that during this pandemic, SBA also have some very good programs to come in to support small business. So and there are some large corporations that are throwing out grants or some special program in order to support small business growth. So I would encourage everyone to just look into it, just scouting the marketplace and try to find those programs and help your business.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, that's those are great comments, and you know, I just want to also plug in here. You know, Cassie mentioned I was with the LA Mayor's office for 5.5 years. I left December 2018, but during my time there, and I know the program continues, they're solely focused on providing solutions for economic development within their jurisdiction, which is the city of LA, of course, but mostly LA County and the region in general. But you know, I've seen, and you mentioned, Jeff, you know, SBA also had a number of you know, the emergency loan program, the PPP program, but also, you know, to Helen's point, you still have to qualify for that kind of engagement with the government. But you know, they have programs from the federal government. They have programs from the state government. So the, you know, Economic and Workforce Development Department here from the state of California also offered a number of resources. But then you also have the county trying to boost that kind of access to information, access to capital or resources to some extent. And then you have local level. And then even beyond that, you have philanthropic organizations, you have chambers of commerce. And so I think what you just mentioned, Jeff, is, you know, reach out to maybe your nearest or your closest partner. It could be your mayor, your city manager, your chamber of commerce, you know, Cal Asian Chamber of Commerce, because really there is really, you know, a wealth of resources and people dedicated to just doing this, right? To helping you navigate those waters. And this is for the public sector side, but also then we have the private sector side, and then comes you, Jeff, in terms of, you know, you help really advise and navigate those waters, because these are trying times, these are difficult times. The bankers are overwhelmed, absolutely. And again, they are having to filter, and sometimes it could be just, you know, similar to Alan's situation where maybe you checked all the boxes, but the collateral part is not quite there. So you can't really leverage yourself. And then maybe Helen was negotiating a deal, you know, and again, the sourcing needs or the resources that the government is buying, those orders are, you know, really, really huge. So it's significant. So it requires quite a lot of capital. And, you know, if you're beyond your whatever, you know, debt ratio, you might not be able to get that access. So I think, again, you should be advised as to what kind of loan you need or what kind of capital you need or funding, and then who might be your best partner, either the private sector or public sector. And so I appreciate all the comments, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation because, again, you know, 2 real life examples here. And so I'm going to add this to my next question, which is something that we realized and we saw during the pandemic, and I've been following this very, very closely since February. The market was incredibly volatile. Yeah. Correct? We've seen, you know, the prices, and I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking, but, you know, I remember that we were seeing one of the ventilators, the most famous one, the VG070, you know, I think March 1st, it was costing $11,000. You know, by the weekend was $13,000. A month later was about 22, and 2 months later was actually $63,000. So the market volatility, I remember that you know, even if you had a purchase order, the corporate offer from the supplier, mostly in Asia and mostly in China, they were only valid for 24, maybe 48 hours. So you had a lot of challenge that also coordinating that structure or those requirements. Plus, the payment terms were really, really steep, right? You had either 100% upfront or 50% payment plus 50% in escrow. And then, you know, how would you go about your inspection and your due diligence and making sure that you had access to that specific cargo that you were trying to acquire? And then beyond that, the logistics, because everyone was selling FOB and you needed to ship that stuff here to the United States. How are we going to clear customs and all that? So it is very challenging. And if you are a small business or, you know, medium-sized business either, you might not have that corporate structure to be able to fulfill all those requirements or to cater to such a challenging or dynamic environment. So I wanted to ask you two, and feel free to share the order that you might see fit, your experience with, because of the market, not just the volatility, but because of the market appetite for COVID-19 supplies, medical equipment, PPE, how would you feel that, is this getting to a point now where it's getting more stable, the prices are stabilized, the suppliers are a little more comfortable doing a different payment structure? Are we seeing less people just trying to venture into this and more on the consolidation of the market in terms of, people really trying to, be ethical about, this is not a money-making adventure, it is a business. And so you have to, of course, keep up with your best business practice. So my question to you at this point is, have you seen the market settle a little more now between, February and March, and now we're, by the way, Saturday is August 1st, everyone. So we're already, way past, beginning of the second semester. So my question to you both, and I'm sorry that I'm taking me so long to ask this question, is how have you perceived the market there? Do you think that now the structure is better in place? Do you think that we will be able to see more access to capital and funding and financing because there's not so much of that craziness that was going on beginning of the pandemic? So please, Jeff or Helen, whoever feels more inclined to answer this.
Okay, so as far as I see, in the past several months, the price is crazy. So you don't know what's the, you know the starting price, but you don't know what's the end price. It's changing almost every day and lots of stuff, especially those PPE supplies in shortage time. But right now, I would say the market is kind of getting calm, getting slow, getting to the point where it becomes more normal. And also it's because that most of the, America is different. Outside America, the most of the countries, they start to, people start to work. So that's why we can get more suppliers from outside. So that helps to stabilize the market, and also the price is going down back to its normal price.
Good. Do you think so? And just to be clear, are you thinking normal price meaning, because we had, again, I mentioned the ventilators, but we had gloves that were 5 cents and now they're 15 cents. When you say normal price, are you thinking pre-COVID or just stabilized somewhere in between pre-COVID and now where we were?
Oh, I'm talking about between. It's a price that should be in the COVID, because in the COVID, all the costs of the goods, all the manufacturers, their price, their cost of material, their labor is going up. So we cannot expect them to go back to pre-COVID 5 cents per gloves. So that's not. You won't get that if you expect that. But if you say, okay, because of that, previously it's 5 cents, and now 10 cents maybe a acceptable price. So I think as long as it does not go to $1, it's reasonable to me.
Excellent. Jeff, please.
Yeah, Philip, you brought up very good points. Actually, I think this is also a very challenging time for a lot of business, because there's a lot of hurdles, uncertainties out there during the whole transaction chain. So, for example, if you are dealing with the federal government, right, oftentimes you have a very strict delivery time, right? Yeah. Like you have to deliver if you win the bid, and there's a fixed price, right? You have that the government's buying from you. And there's a certain time you have to deliver that goods. Otherwise, you're violating the contract, okay? And meanwhile, so on your supply side, if you're dealing with these overseas suppliers like that we just talked about, and the price could change over time, every day. And the logistic price also adds another complicated layers to it. Like, your logistic partner may say, okay, I'm going to deliver it in 15 days or 20 days. And all of a sudden they got delayed and they raise the price. We see that all happens. Okay, so every so-and-so just adds so much cost to the business owner. If you're the distributors, you are wholesalers, etc., resellers, your business risk just increase, from compared to a normal time. Just a lot of uncertainty you have to deal with. And from the financier's standpoint, how do you calculate the margin of the business, right? If there are so many moving parts out there, like the delivery time, if you cannot do the on-time delivery, what if the whole contract got voided, right? What if you cannot collect the payment? And so these are all risk in the eyes of the financier. And what if the quality doesn't meet the criteria? It says it meet, but what if you get a return? Do you have enough time to handle the return? And what about those extra added shipping costs, the shipping back to the factory, and you're wasting for another month, and now you have to pay those like restocking fees or any sort of fees, logistic fees you have to pay upfront. These just put all the I would say the business owner we're trying to help on in this PPE world so much in the passive mode, because if you see so much there's so much risk, then as a business owner you have a choice. Either you want to take that calculated risk or not. And if those all the parties that you're dealing with, you feel comfortable and you have pre-existing relationship, you feel that they can deliver and perform, maybe yes, you will just step in and do that to the deal. Or if there are some certain party in the chain that you don't really know them, then I think that's just a lot of worries that I hear from a place. And even so, that you're dealing with like credible partners. I have some examples, just from my friends who are also in the wholesale business, that they're dealing with the reputable logistic partners they've been dealing with over decades. But they're trying to ship mask over from overseas suppliers to the U.S. and it originally they planned for 20 days shipment time. Then it got delayed for 2 months. That was during the pandemic, between I think it's March, April, where everything is totally a mess. And so how do you deal with the government contract like that, right? And on your demand side, your buyer probably think, hey, what's going on? Why you say you're gonna deliver, you never deliver? Is it a scam or something? And people, it just add a lot of worry to people. But actually, it is not. But the fact is that the goods never been delivered, and it got late. It arrived after 2 months, just because of logistic coordination and the problem. It got stuck in the customs, and maybe you may not have the right certificates or license that required in order to clear the custom, etc. So we have seen a lot of that. So back to your original question, Philip, I do see the price got stabilized a little bit, and I have an interesting way to observe that. Right. So I still remember, in the beginning of the pandemic, February, March, everybody shelter in place. We went to Costco. We shop with a local, grocery store. And we're trying to find sanitizer. We're trying to buy a PPE product. We couldn't, right? Everything is out of stock. And but since last month, I still we do our regular family shopping round to Costco, and I found sanitizer. I found all the PPE items that was out of stock. It's back. So I think that's a good indicator that when the big box, the retailers, resellers, wholesalers, they are having enough stock, then that means that the market's gradually coming back to normal. And we've seen a box of masks, coming from $50 to back to 40, 30, now it's 20 something, right? So that pricing change also tells us something. That means that the market, the chaotic time is gradually coming back to normal. So that's just my personal observation.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Those are great comments, and thank you so much for sharing all these thoughts and experiences. One thing that I also like to point out is, a lot of retooling happened here inside the United States, and a lot of small and medium-sized businesses and minority-owned businesses also shifted their businesses. They were a printing or a packaging firm, and they started to supply PPE and face shields and gowns and all that. And even large companies. I know Apple donated, I don't know 100,000 face shields to the state of California, or Honeywell cut a deal with the city of LA for KN95s for 79 cents, which is unbeatable considering all the tariffs and logistics hurdles that we'd have to buy sourcing from abroad. So I think I agree with you both that the pricing is stabilizing. I think also not only that, but the usage of PPE, now people understand that they can, this is how long they're going to use that. They don't have to rewash that disposable surgical mask, or they can actually clean that face shield with just water and soap, and they can continue to reuse it. So I think the market is adjusting, and I'm happy to see. And again, the idea is people have to have access to information, and this is what we're doing here. We're sharing what our experience has been, so that we can advise people also on how to go about their business and sourcing PPEs and dealing with the COVID pandemic and getting access to capital. One thing that I wanted to mention, and Jeff, you mentioned this during your talking points as well, and it's one of the questions here that I want to just plug in here. Because of the shutdown, because of the travel restrictions, and there's just it's not business as usual. Right? You can't, if you like that supplier, you want to travel to Vietnam and go see him or her, and you like to go to China and go visit that plant and secure that load and make sure that you're, if you want to tag along with that load and make sure that you're boarding that to that plane that you rented, whatever amount of money that you had to pay for that freight. There's not much vetting that you can do yourself or do the due diligence itself. So my question, and it's one of the questions that we got here from the audience, is how are you doing, both you, Helen and Jeff, in terms of your vetting process for suppliers? Are you relying on partners that you have on the ground in those countries, or what kind of relationship are you developing with those suppliers to make sure that you're not going to go into the kind of problems that both of you just highlighted, in terms of, there's no delivery, or, the items didn't quite clear or fit what you purchased. So, and Jeff, I want to start with you, because you just mentioned a lot about that. And I know that, you're doing some of the vetting. So how is that going for you? And then we'll turn it to Ellen again.
Yeah, that's a good question, Philip. So, so if we have a choice, I would definitely just, go with the US-based supplier first, because that's easier from a due diligence perspective, and you just get rid of all the hurdles, etc. But unfortunately, during in the past several decades, we have built a global economies, which it's a kind of every market has its own strength, and they're supplying for the global economy. So that is just the situation we live in. So a lot of products are currently supplied from overseas. So so back to your question, how do we do the vettings? So there are several aspects that we'll look at. So first of all, we look at who we're dealing with, and the creditworthiness of the companies, right? Is it reputable? And there's just a couple of public information that you can check, right? Like how long it's been established, its shareholder backgrounds, the financial strength, etc. From the public information, just do your own research if you could, right? Check the company's website if you don't know them, and see if they have any customer referrals and rating reviews. Just do your own typical internet search and try to get an idea. But I would also like to mention something like very interesting, like in our experience dealing with overseas suppliers, it's pretty much relationship business. Okay, so that relationship, it's if you don't know someone and you are trying to get in a line when there's a long waiting line, chances are you getting the product you want is very low. So I dealt with a few very credible suppliers in the past, and I know that they're very trustworthy. but unfortunately, they have a long wait time. That in February, say, can you supply a mask? They say, oh, it's all full until December. So that's the challenge you're facing. Like when you're dealing with the very reputable suppliers, oftentimes there's whole production, volumes are booked, right? And also on the other side, you also have some emergent suppliers coming up, right? And you check their companies, they just recently registered, like 1 month old, right? Or 3 months old company, right? They come into the space and they probably get some source from the manufacturers or etc. They're trying to do some tradings, and so these are very opportunity driven type of traders. And so I would say, we have to do more vetting if you're dealing with these type of trading companies when they are extremely young and they may or may not have the experience. They may or may not have the capital that required in order to fulfill the orders. And if things goes wrong, like the product quality, the certificate, the license, that's not there, you may not be able to find the responsible party for your transaction orders. So those things that we typically we look into it, and also I think the overall transaction records. Nowadays, a lot of people just hop onto some platforms such as like Alibaba platforms or any marketplace. If you're dealing with South Asian market suppliers, there are different marketplace that has a supplier network. However, you have to be careful, when you're dealing with them. And so if we solely rely on the public information which is posted on the internet, we also need to be cautious whether who feeds us those information. Are they the right information or not? Is those information manipulated or not? Right. So I think the one way to look at it is you can also as a US-based business owner, right? We should talk to some of the information, the relationship that we have. So, for example, like MBDA or SBA, right, or the Chamber of Commerce, because oftentimes these US-based association or organization, they have the mission or charters in order to help and support small business, and they have built a very trustworthy connection and relationship over decades. So I think those would be a good starting points. If talk to your local Chamber of Commerce, talk to SBA and MBDA, they may refer you to some suppliers or parties that they dealt with in the past. I think that's additional relationship layer of vetting beyond your public information layer of vetting, right? And then you come into some folks like you, Phillips, you have experience dealing with advising the companies, and so that comes the private sector part, right? So when you're dealing with some consultants or advisors who specialize in tradings, supply chain management, then when you talk to these people, they will just feed you a very wealth of information. How do you do your normal due diligence? We have a very long checklist. I'm not going through that today, but talk to these people and to get educated before you do any deals or transaction with any foreign parties. Yep.
Fantastic. Helen, please, your thoughts. Fantastic, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree with what Jeff said. So yeah, first of all, you got to do your homework. So do your own due diligence, check everything, research everything on internet, or if possible, someone locally. You cannot be there, especially in overseas situation. But if you know someone there, it will be easier to get into the market, to know more people. And just for our company, it's good that I have a strong alumni network. So I graduated from Peking University. So as you know, it's a big university in China. So we have a strong alumni network. I can leverage, get to know all the manufacturers. So if I want to, I can go through some people to ask for help. So it's good that they are willing to help at this moment, and we all know that it's a one word for everyone. We are all in this together, so that's good.
Fantastic.
And second thing,
yes.
Yes. So they're willing to help, no matter where you come from, no matter what help you ask for. As long as they can help, they are willing to help. So that's good. And the second thing is that I would say I also agree with Jeff. We should leverage local resources as well. That's my mistake. I did not know too much people locally. I did not attend chamber events too much. So I don't know local chamber person. So that was a challenge for me to. I can get some price from China. Then how do I sell it? So I have challenge to sell it. So then right now I'm trying to spend effort trying to build that channel to sell it.
Yes. We're here. We're building it right now.
Yes.
Still time.
Yes.
No, this is fantastic, and I think you mentioned, you hit a couple of points that are critical. Relationship, absolutely, right?
Yes.
Your alumni network, your previous job, or your membership to an association, but also beyond the relationship are the good business practices, right? Because that creates the reputation that any kind of company can have. So if it is a brand new company, of course, it's going to take time to build that reputation. But the brand new company has executives that have some kind of history, and that reputation precedes them. So I think it's important that we keep that in mind. And I appreciate your comments are just so important and relevant, of course, for this discussion. I agree. There are many different ways for you to get either vetting of a supplier, but you really do have to ask, right? If you're, the audience is asking, are the chambers of commerce vetting some of the suppliers? But we have, believe it or not, the PPE and medical supplies equipment supply chain existed long before COVID-19. So there are really big players doing the exact same work. Of course, they're overwhelmed right now. Of course, maybe their price point, tripled, and it might make your operation more expensive. But there are phenomenal US-based companies that are, or organizations, the American Chamber of Commerce, they're even, we're very close to the, Chinese consulate here in Los Angeles, and they are amazing. They have a weekly newsletter with a number of details about the pandemic, but also supporting some of the efforts to connect the suppliers that have been vetted by the own Chinese government. So, the layers of security that you can add to your business is really based on those connections that really can help you check those boxes in terms of making sure that that cargo or that shipment that you just acquired will make its way exactly how you purchased, and you will get delivered to the location that you said, a bonded warehouse somewhere in the United States, so you can pay the second half of it once you clear that hurdle. So comments are very, very, very important, very timely, and I appreciate them. And I appreciate your candor also in terms of explaining the challenges and the opportunities that you've been facing. One question that I also want to add to this, as we're talking about vetting and access to information and access to capital, one of the questions here that was asked was, what is the Exim Bank doing, right? The Export-Import Bank doing in terms of COVID resources or assistance? And from my experience, I've worked with the Exim Bank quite a lot. They're a trade financing and mostly an insurance almost funding or financing opportunity or partner for your business. And they are very well aware of the challenges, so they have been extending a lot of the solutions that they were providing to companies that needed that kind of funding or that kind of assistance. They have a streamlined process to really, receive your funding application or requirements. I know that they have postponed or extended a number of deadlines that they had for, again, your same purposes of funding your purchase order or your acquisition. And, they have a number of waivers and different solutions as well. So a quick question, and this is a rapid fire. Have any of you, Helen or Jeff, had any interactions, or can you say anything about your experience with the Exim Bank to share with the audience? Helen, please, have you connected with Exim during your time, or you have any experience with them?
For the bank, I did not ask the bank directly on finance for PPEs. I talked to several let's say a CPA or CFO, that kind of person, try to provide estimate for me, and the result is based on their estimation is that I should stay in my way, do my IT businesses all the time. Don't step into PPE or medical supply business, because that's not something that I should do based on their calculation. But I mean, if everyone stay in their own line, then I mean, we all know that the existing PPE supply channel or medical supply channel, they are already overwhelmed, or they don't have enough suppliers to provide the goods. So there has to be some new businesses come in to step up and to get suppliers from anywhere we can get to support the need.
Wonderful.
So that's where I think we are working on this together and try to build a channel, try to help businesses to get those needed supplies, not just for PPE, but also office supplies, IT supplies, everything needed. We should get that from anywhere we can get.
Fantastic. Jeff, just brief comments, because I just noted
Yeah.
that we are kind of running out of time.
So on the Exim Bank, in the past, I dealt with Exim Bank mostly on the on trade missions, which is promoting the U.S. goods to outside world. So I know that's part that there are the programs out there to help the U.S. Manufacturers sell goods outside of the U.S. and Exim Banks definitely will be a good resources to provide some international country intelligence, informations, how you do business in different jurisdictions, all that. They have a lot of resources for business owners reference. In terms of the importings, I haven't got a chance to check the Exim Bank's importing programs. So that's a good point. So we'll definitely look into it and see if we can find anything. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much, Helen and Jeff. I'm going to turn it over to Cassie because we're almost at the end of our program here. I really do appreciate the talk. I would encourage anyone from the audience, if you haven't really addressed all the questions, I tried my best to address as many as possible. Please refer those questions to the Sacramento MBDA email. I think Cassie is going to provide it to you later. If not, it's sacramentombda@calasian.org. So that's pretty easy. But I appreciate the conversation again, Jeff and Helen. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work that you do, supplying us with supplying the United States with so many PPE and financial assistance. And I'll just turn it back to Cassie. And I think we're going to allow final remarks from both of you. But Cassie?
Thanks, Felipe. My computer is coming along here. There we go. Thank you all for the fantastic discussion. It was really insightful and wonderful to listen on all your fronts and your experiences as far as your business, financial issues, resources during COVID-19. And so I just want to address the chat box one last time. We did have one question about whether our center, the MBDA, that's importing overseas companies. And so for us, our mission is to help minority businesses export. So with COVID-19 related PPE products, there is the Defense Act where we cannot do that. But we do have a number of resources such as the U.S. Commercial Service that does provide background checks service to companies to check whether the company that they're working with, the supplier that they're working with, is a legitimate company and reliable. So that is a service there. Following this webinar, we'll be happy to round up those resources for you and send it out to all the attendees, as well as this recording of the webinar. I think it would be great reference for everyone to look back upon, especially during COVID-19. So just wanted to put that out there. And lastly, if there are any additional questions that we didn't get to, or if you have questions specifically for myself, the Sacramento MBDA Export Center, or Felipe, the CITC, please send it to sacramentombda@calasiancc.org. If you are a supplier or buyer that's participating in this trade show and you'd like to contact Jeff or Helen, please go ahead and reach out to them via the supplier directory. There is a contact supplier button which you can send your inquiry there. So as far as this webinar, we're already at 11 o'clock. Thank you all, Felipe, Helen, and Jeff, for the wonderful discussion. We look forward to seeing you throughout the rest of this week. Hope you all have a great afternoon, and we'll see you tomorrow for a supplier diversity webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you, Cassie.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.